Hello and welcome back to Bricked and Mortared. My name is Kirsty Merriman and I'm a full-time bespoke infill property developer. Today we're tackling an issue that I deal with lots of people contacting me about, and it's utility connections, but not just any utility connections. This is the most special, one of the most frustrating ones. It's called the vector connection. It's really important to us because at the moment what we're seeing is rising costs. We've got the inflation rate going up, we've got house cost materials going up, we have house prices going up, but we have infrastructure costs escalating, of which vectors contributing significantly to it. So today, or over recent weeks or months, I have been in contact with a variety of different people within the industry. And one person that stepped up as part of our networks was Dan. So this is Daniel Dry from Dry Electrical.
Hi everyone.
Yep. Daniel is a registered electrician and he believes in doing the right thing. He seems to me to be popular with a lot of people because he seems to know how to work vector. In fact, for his clients or customers, he's coordinating not just vector, but watercare and chorus. For those of you that may or may not know, last year when I tried to get my utilities connected, I was trying to have it all coordinated at once. I had everything set out and it all went to hell in a handcart. We still ended up with footpath cut up 3 times. Nothing happened quickly. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't make it work. So what we need to do, I believe, and what this is about, is saying the hard stuff, which is time for project managers and head contractors and trades to step up and lead or instruct in the connection process. At the moment, it's the owner or the landowner's job to apply for connections. But since we've got this infill property development, we tend to have mums and dads. Now, they are inexperienced and they're up against large organisations. They end up being price takers. For instance, Chorus will come or Watercare will come to me and say, where do you want your box? And I'll just say, here. I don't know where the best spot is, but I still mark it. There are better ways of doing things. So today, Dan's going to step us through it. But before we get on to that, I need to note that this podcast is based on our opinions, based on our personal experiences, and it's illustrative, based on examples aimed at improving how we do things. You must get your own professionals. You must design specifically for your project. Now, with that bit done, we're going to start with stories. So very briefly, I'm going to wind you back 2020, my 14-unit development. And yes, I was told that I needed to coordinate with Vector and get everything connected. So I applied to Vector. Next thing I know, I have a quote for $140,000. I need to have that magic 300 kVA transformer installed. As to why I need a 300 kVA, I don't know. It's what they said. And I applied. I worked as hard as I could over several months and went in circles and got nowhere. However, finally, head contractor and their trades stepped up without me knowing. They knew what they were doing. They stepped in. And the net result was that $140,000 dropped down to $12,000 because they knew to get a capacity check done. Was it capacity check?
That's the word, yep.
And then they put this fancy green box inside. You open the doors and it's got a wee sign saying only these people are allowed to open it, and there's a key and a lock. Total bill, $30,000. Nowhere near the 140 if they hadn't stepped in. So we're bringing this to you all. How do you make your vector connections the most efficient possible at this point in time? So now I'm going to ask Dan some questions. Step through. Right now, the first topic is the most important one, which is getting started, the design and the application process.
That's the one.
So how about you fly off and tell us what do you think about the design and how do you start the application process?
Usually when someone engages myself, I will go and do a site visit, and I will just go there with my eyes open and just see the site for what it actually is and look for existing connections. So I don't know if you can see this very well, but this is called a pillar, and you'll maybe look at around Auckland, you actually see quite a lot of these now, and this will usually have three connections that you could possibly use. So if you were doing a 7 lot subdivision, you could get three connections out of this, and then you'd only have to ask for four. And that's an important issue. You maybe ask for that 7 lot connection, and then you're going to go into the bad side of vector is what I'm going to call it.
That's the complex projects, I believe. That's what they call it. It's i.e. where you've got to pay $3,000 as opposed to 300.
That's the one. And you get these ridiculous administration costs for vector and
10% project management cost, I believe.
oh,
Well, not necessarily 10%, but you may have a $120,000 quote, of which $13,000 is project management.
I just think when you go to that side of vector, the job is meant to be 30,000 for instance, it just seems to double, which probably isn't fair on us.
So let's direct into basic design as well. People may have architects design a 3-story building and it's about 10 centimetres away from overhead lines.
Yep.
So you need to have your designers involved right at the start, knowing where your lines are.
And then get the appropriate clearance, because that later on brings big trouble, because there has to be certain distances that scaffold needs to be away from the power lines. And I don't know, it's Victor's, what's the word I'm looking for here, angle on this is they almost try to get WorkSafe onto you if you don't comply. So just if we make sure we get those clearances, it's just another bill that we probably don't have to use or get.
And then the next bit is the start of the application process. That I think you've got down to a fine art, haven't you?
I hope so.
Yeah, so how about you tell us here what's the most streamlined application process and who should be or who's doing it? So you said you've got a letter.
Oh, okay. So yep.
So how does someone apply for a vector connection?
I personally do it. There's a vector portal, and I actually apply for all my applications for my customers in the vector portal. You can actually keep track of it when they are going to go look at your job. Once they've submitted the quote, it's actually a really handy tool, and it's, even though I'm an electrician, it's actually open to everybody to get a vector portal application. So
if someone was starting, let's say I say, hey Dan, I want to connect these 4 houses up. Would I have to do anything? You would just do that for me.
I would I've got a little letterhead. One of my first moves I like to make is I like to get the customer to apply for the street addresses, and that's just a simple email to the AC property information part of the Auckland Council. And when you put this application in, you usually attach the resource consent plans or the building consent plans, and it has like a preliminary survey set out in there. And if you're doing a 7 lot subdivision, those 7 lots will usually be drawn on there, and then they'll come back and say that's going to be 50A, B, C, D. It's like the identification process for that development, and then that street address is used to get your ICP number issued.
So what you're saying, you need to apply for your proper street addresses.
Yep.
Get that first, come to you, and you will load it onto Vector and get the ICP numbers
Yep.
for your client. So without those, you can't go anywhere.
Yep. And if you remember this picture of this little magic green box, you can actually use that ICP number to say, or that street address number to say that, okay, I'd like to use one of those fuses for lot 1, and then the second fuse for lot 2, the third fuse for lot C. So pretty important, that one.
Okay, then when we chatted other times, one thing we talked about were general cost-saving strategies for utility connections.
Yep.
Before we go right into that, one major cost-saving strategy is to try and coordinate it all together.
Of course.
But here, we're focusing on Vector. Yep. Probably in a later podcast, we'll talk about combining them. So, are you able to give us some real examples of where developers have saved significant money on their connections?
Okay, I'm probably going to get sick of seeing this little green box, but this little green box here, if you have this outside your property, that's 3 free connections that you can have. There's no vector contributions, no nothing for this. So you have to make the most of this, okay? The second little picture I'm going to show you here is quite often, more than not, the power line is across the road and you have to have an overhead crossing coming across the road to usually a cross pole. And there is lots of old cross poles out there, but you want a cross pole that has these magic numbers on it. It has to be 9 meters, 9 kN. And if you have that magic pole, you can actually use that crossing or that power pole for your overhead crossing. And if you don't, you usually either have to upgrade that cross pole, which can be tens of thousands of dollars, or if not, you have to drill across the road, underground thrusting, and we all know that that's going to be a lot more than the tens of thousands. It's going to be way more. So
Correct.
look out for those two things. They can definitely save you money.
And there's the most basic, of course, which is doing your own civils. So we've been talking one-on-one, I have, not we have, with Vector. And the big issue is people coming in, they don't actually know even the most basic of cost savings, as I didn't know. And Vector hadn't been communicating it there. They've said they'll communicate it better, but the first step is organise your own TMP and your own civil work. If you do this, this is your responsibility though. But do that. We've had examples of bills of $150,000 going down to 75. But watch out very carefully for their project management fee. I've actually challenged them on that. And what I did say is, these are excessive quotes. I think if I read it, Vector should remove their excessive project management fees. Currently, I've said, they make up the main course of many quotes, e.g. $13,000 of a $128,000 quote. Now, when I relate it to a site manager, it's about equivalent to 108 hours. It makes no sense. Now, Vector's response was, unfortunately, we're unable to comment on the commercial arrangements between our service providers and their subcontractors. So it means we're rather trapped because their subcontractors or service providers are regionally split and only Omexom in one area and North Power in the other.
Yep.
So how can we get another project management quote? What we need to do is avoid the complex connections, which is possible if you're careful and crafty.
Yep.
With what you got.
That capacity check, guys, it's important. I almost think it keeps you out of the vector complex quote system. So
you want to avoid it.
Yeah, at all costs.
But it costs you to get the capacity check.
It does.
It's worth it, isn't it?
It really is, guys.
How expensive is that capacity check?
I don't know, was it 3,000? It might be 3.5.
Yeah, something like that. Can you organise it yourself, or do Vector have to come out and do that, or Omexom or North Power do it?
No, it's done by Omexom or North Power. You basically have to pay the money, but it's a lot better knowing you don't have to put a transformer in and have to pay this $100,000 bill. I'd certainly rather pay $3,000 and get a capacity check done.
And I have heard there's been a lot of challenging because they were sort of insisting on 300 kVA transformers even for a small 10 lot subdivision. When I spoke to them last, they're reviewing that. One thing to note though is you can actually do the transformer yourself and provide it yourself. But if you do that and you do the installation, if something goes wrong, it is your responsibility. Vector, though, have to do the HV or the fusey bits.
The HV fuses from the high voltage to the low voltage.
Yep.
And it's like a normal fuse, we'll call that. So that part you can't go to anyone else for. So
we could talk about cost-saving strategies forever. We won't carry on with that. I think the key cost saving is try and find somebody that can help you coordinate it. Don't, as a mum and dad, go to Vector directly. If you do, you are a sucker for punishment and a sucker for cost. So the next topic we're going to touch on, we talked about, was the importance of early planning and coordination. We've kind of really started on it about the capacity checks, but we're talking about optimal locations for connection points and service routes. Do you want to briefly give some key things we need to be thinking about for early planning coordination?
Well, definitely we want to get the pit located on the main driveway, either side of the driveway, and it makes definitely a lot of sense. It makes our life easier if there's a grass verge either side of it. How that works is it just makes it easier, I suppose, because concrete's a lot harder to install. There's reinstallation costs of concrete and stuff.
They're shelf rents.
Oh, those are big ones, those, aren't they?
So those I don't know what I think Victor have told me what the word is, but they had like prices and they'd put your quotes together like Lego pieces. So this is the cost for 2 meters squared by 1 meter deep, and that's the price you get. They have said to me that they are in process of reviewing those and getting them well QS'd and making sure they're market, but they haven't got it completed yet. It's still going, so watch out for that.
But you can actually take that out of the main quote if you get it early enough. You can't say you want them to reinstate the concrete and then when they come to do it, say you're going to do it yourself. Like
Cost you another $300.
This is with what we're talking about, the good planning stage. You have to have a good plan and an idea of what you want to do yourself. Like at the start, it's
Especially
you
doing your own driveway, because if your boxes or your little thingy bob is going to be near the driveway, you're going to be digging up your driveway anyway.
Yeah, totally.
Don't dig it up for a fifth time.
Yeah, and I see it time and time and time again.
Correct. Okay, so I think we've clearly got challenges, but we've got some potential solutions. We need to turn things around and not be price takers, as I've said. We need to take charge, use expertise, share until we've got it sorted out. Why do Vector and their subcontractors get to do your civil works when someone else can do it for nearly half the price?
But it has to be done to the Vector standard, okay, guys? And that is the important part. And you actually have to photograph it and give them evidence. And if you can provide that, they leave you alone. So,
which is good. So what we talked about was taking control of the process. So how do we take control of the process? Professional coordination.
Oh, most definitely.
Yep. So that's trade coordination or specialist project manager coordination, head contractor coordination, be anyone, but in reality it really needs to be your electrician, doesn't it? Registered.
And early at the start of the job, not think, okay, we're into the middle of the job and okay, oh now let's sort out our water connection, our chorus connection now. Like we can actually do these before the job even starts. Like and
pay your money early.
I see it time and time again. We all procrastinate, we do it late and we suffer. So let's go early, guys, okay? It makes our lives easier.
And then the next one is strategic planning of civil works. Make sure your vector work lines up with driveway works. As we'll talk a bit later on another podcast, your water care works, your chorus works.
Yep.
Line it up.
Most definitely. It's just going to cost you if you basically dig up and pay someone to replace your driveway 3 times. It just doesn't make sense.
Correct. And then the other key thing that you've been flagging to me for some time has been understanding the available infrastructure, not just assuming it's not there. Check to see what you've got. And if you're down a driveway and you've got overhead lines, you're likely to have to underground those overhead lines. You need to know what's available. And then the other big one you've talked about is getting the capacity checks before major commitments. You want to avoid the bad side.
Yep, the bad side, because it is bad, people. It is.
As I experienced myself. I probably take three contacts a week about Vector, people wanting something or a direction. I refer them to my website, which is www.kirstymerriman.com, where I've got a section on utilities, but I think it's all complicated. This here is hopefully going to allow people to shortcut me and not filter through me, learn what to do, watch this podcast, find your own Dan or find Dan. Dry Electrical, what's your website?
Dry Electrical at dryelectrical.co.nz.
Yep, so find him there. I'm currently directing people through there. There are others that do it. I believe companies like GoFox do it. The trade that did mine in Takanini was, I think, Complete Electrical. So just find people or trades that will do it. If you've got a trade you really like working with, an electrician, get them to step up. Ask them to do it for you. They should be able to learn how to do it. And I'm sure if they reached out within the network, it can be shared. I think it's in our common best interest to make this part utility installations streamlined. We can do it. So that's it for now. Thank you very much for listening to us at Bricked Mortared and also from Dry Electrical.
Thanks, people.
Cheers.